Welcome to the podcast Crash, Burn, Rise Again, where we share stories of burning out and rebuilding better. Join myself, Shireen Lister, your host, and my special guests as we share our personal journeys through burnout, stress, overwhelm, and more, and show how we came out the other side. Learn and leverage from the lessons and wisdom we gained along the way so we can help you to rise too. Hey, welcome to episode 11, and I'm super excited today to have my very dear friend Gretel here with me from Greteljane Coaching. Oh my gosh, it's been so long since we've chatted, Gretel, and I'm excited to be talking with you.
Yes.
Really exciting. Gretel and I actually, it's a number of years ago now, trained together to become coaches. So we've met way back at the start of my coaching journey, and the same with Gretel's. It's pretty early on in yours. And now it's beautiful to see the different directions our businesses have taken. But still the way that what we really talk about at the core overlaps and it's really quite similar. And so Gretel is a relationship coach and a trauma therapist for separated parents of school-aged children. So she helps parents to navigate the confusion, stress, and emotional roller coaster of separation, and supports families in dealing with all that goes on through and after that as well. And it is incredible what you do, Gretel. Do you want to tell people a little bit more about that?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I work with a lot of families who've experienced trauma specifically, and also help parents with their own or their children's mental health issues, because that can be something that comes up a lot, particularly things like anxiety and depression and, various behaviors. I work with parents who have teenage children, or sort of, mostly I work with parents of school-age children. So that sort of school-age navigating separation can be a really tough one for, relationships change, get turned upside down, children feel like their world's been turned upside down. And so all kind of behaviors can manifest, and then just rebuilding on those relationships again. And then where there's mental health issues as well, it can be super challenging. And I have my own lived experience there to bring to the table as well. But yeah, I really just help parents to thrive beyond separation, because it is possible even when you think it's not. Beyond separation, everything's just gone pear-shaped, and nothing that you thought was going to happen or supposed to happen happened, and something completely different is unfolding that feels horrible. So yeah, I just help them to release the emotional pain and the guilt that they feel, because parental guilt is a big one. And yes, and then just really trust their natural parenting instincts again, because as parents we all have them. And actually even adults who become parents, even if they're not their own children, actually find you have these instincts for parenting. But particularly if you've had children, those instincts kick in. And so parents being able to trust themselves again, I think is something that I really do, just so they can support themselves and their children just with that calm confidence that that they really crave at that time when everything's so chaotic, and just create a life that's really joyful and free, that they truly love. And it is possible to do, but feels impossible when you're in the trenches.
Oh, it really can. I think it's so beautiful. Like, it's such a common thing that goes on, that we have, separation and families changing, and to help people find their feet through that. I think that's a huge part of sort of what you help people do, because as you said, it's really, there's a lot of guilt, there's a lot of turmoil going on, and to sort of allow parents to come back to themselves and be okay within themselves, and then be able to support their kids as well, because there's so much going on, and we try and do it all, but I like that it's the parents and the kids. It's not one or the other that you support. It's all of that together, and that's really beautiful. Thank you for doing that much needed thing. Absolutely.
Yes, I love it.
Wonderful.
I really love helping people to go on the journey that I've been on and are still on. That journey doesn't end, does it? Especially
not at
when
all.
You've got teenagers and they go through all different things as they go along. But yes, I love being able to to help people to do it a lot more quickly than I did.
Yes, that's what I'm about to. That's why this podcast exists. How can I help people to
Yes.
avoid burnout or get over your burnout a whole lot quicker than I have? And all of it to sort of work through that journey faster. Hey, that's why we do what we do. We've gone through it. We're not void of any of these problems. There just might be a slightly different version of them. Hey, and then it's how do we then help other people do it better, quicker, and so on with us? So absolutely.
Yes, and in
Because you
their own
talked
way
about
as well. Yeah.
yes, absolutely. Yeah. Because you talked about how you've had some of that journey as well. So you are a sole parent and you have been since your children were quite young.
Yeah.
And I know that's been quite a journey for you out of a relationship that was fraught with a lot of challenges and then navigating your journey on your own. And so I can imagine that at times that's been very stressful and quite a lot to manage, raising two kids on your own. Yeah. Can you share a little bit about what that was like or has been like?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, yes, I think there probably at least 3 times in the last 11 years, which it's been where I hit that absolute overwhelm burnout point. Yes, like I think definitely that day and probably the lead up to it that I actually packed the car up and just drove away because it was an abusive relationship that I left. So physically and emotionally. So, and I know that a lot of people, probably more than we realize, go through this in separating and leaving a relationship. So I want you to know that you can survive. You can get through it. For some people, it's amicable, but even so, even if it's amicable, it's not really. It's in inverted commas. It's still a very painful thing to separate from, someone else, and with children as well, who you have to explain the whole thing to, and you worry about how it's going to affect them and all of that kind of thing. So, yes, I think. Yes, I just remember those times of absolute collapse where, my body, my mind, my everything just could not function anymore. And I had to, I think all I could do really was just keep looking after the children in those times. There's nothing left for me. It's just looking after the kids and making sure they're okay. And, trying to get through it that way. I think for me, reaching out for help was a really big one because I didn't want to do that. I would very much wanted to do it all myself because it was, very much a protection thing, But yes, I had to reach out for help sometimes and let my mum come in and take the kids for a while so that I could just sleep or just rest, just go have a bath, go take an hour to have a coffee or sit in the park and do nothing, like that was where I started with actually moving beyond it to the point where, I slowly started to allow myself more and more time to myself because I thought, you know what, I'm actually going to be a better parent if I take time out for myself. And as I started to go on my healing journey, with lots of help from lots of different coaches and psychologists and counselors, but I'd say mostly the coaches and work that was more embodied and really worked with those pesky imprints in the subconscious mind, that things really started to change. And as I started to change, I started to realize that yes, I do need to actually take out time for myself so that I can be a better parent and I can actually show my kids how to do it. So, I want them to be able to look after themselves too. So, duh, as a mum, they're watching me. So I need to be able to show them that it's important to do that for yourself too. So, it's very much a journey. And yes, but when you get to that point, like you absolute collapse point, you think, okay, I really need to do something about it now. Like it's almost like a bit of a wake up call, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think as parents, that can be really hard sometimes when our tank is so empty that we go, oh, I've got hardly anything left. I'll just do what I need to look after the kids.
Yeah.
as you said, you had nothing left for you, but then that's what you need most. And so I think we can get stuck sometimes, can't we, in that, oh, but I need to keep looking after my kids. Or sometimes people like this with their work as well. I just need to keep giving to work. I can wait. And that sort of thing. Or both, which is, even all that. But it can be really hard to start to find that time for ourselves again. And so I love that you get to a point where you could reach out to people. Was there anything that really enabled you to start to do that? Or was it just that you got so worn down that you kind of went, I've got no other choice?
A bit of both. I think my mom and my closest friends, the ones that sort of moved in first and went, my mum went, do you want me to take the kids overnight, or so you can have a sleep? And I was like, oh, okay. And I'm like thinking of all the things that they're going to need. And Mum's like, don't worry, I've done this before. I'm probably not going to do it exactly like you, but I'll be right. The kids won't die. And I'm like, oh, thanks, Mum. And so I managed to let go. It's a very difficult thing to do at first. Every separated parent, especially sole parent, will relate to this. It's very difficult to prise those fingers off, the little ones, and let someone else take the responsibility for a while, and then the guilt sets in. Oh my God, yes. And that's another conversation, but or another part of the conversation. But yes, I let my mom take them at first. I progressed through to she ended up I think in the last 5 years or something, taking them for a week every school holidays for me, because as a sole parent I didn't have that week. If you're separated and you have 50-50, then you don't have the kids for a week, so you can recover, you can heal, you can go out and meet someone else, you can do all the things. But I didn't have any time for that because I had them all the time 24/7. So mum taking them for a week was just like, I do now. Yes. So that was wonderful once I lent into that. And I slowly started to make connections in the local community I was living into, and really making connections with other single mothers who whatever their arrangements were, and just having that little support group was amazing. There were 3 of us in the area that used to look after each other's kids, so we literally had sardines in our living room on those nights, and the kids loved it. We turned on a movie, had popcorn, they just made a mess, they just played with each other. And the mothers who had it was their turn to give up responsibility for the night, for the weekend, whatever. And the arrangement was like, if you have them overnight, then you don't pick them up until like 3 o'clock the next day. So you can sleep in, you can have some time for yourself. You can, so that was absolutely gold. And that got me through just that support and being able to give it back as well to the other mothers. And we did do that for each other, having that little group. Took a little while to build, because it's, you need to get to know other people and what they're like, and to be able to leave your children with them is a really big thing. But definitely something that I did bit by bit as I felt comfortable, and yes, absolutely helped me to recover. So I could just have days where I just stayed in bed or went out walking or just did whatever I needed to do to recover and rebuild and get more back to myself.
And it is such a real thing, the mum guilt, isn't it? And so I think that that plays into burnout so much more sometimes, because we're like, no, I just need to keep doing. I just need to, and they need me. But if I'm not there, but reality is, if we, as you said, you needed that time to yourself to be a better parent. It really isn't serving us to be there all the time to the point that we're really run down, or even to be feeling guilty, because then we're not enjoying our time if we do have solo time. So have you got any tips for people about dealing with that mum guilt, or what's worked for you? I'm sure it's still a work in progress, but is there anything that's helped you?
Definitely. And there's a lot of layers to it, so that's okay. I mean, I think the first thing I would say is, it's okay to feel guilty. You feel, it's okay to feel whatever it is that you feel. If you feel that guilt, which can become shame, it can become really heavy, and it can become about you. It can become, I'm a bad mother, which is where it gets into shame and it becomes part of your identity story. But just feeling that guilt, I think the first thing is just to acknowledge it and give yourself some compassion, and just recognize that that's what it is. Oh, okay, feeling guilty, because there's so many layers to it, like especially, you know, when you're talking about, you know, there's the parental guilt, which every parent experiences, whether you're separate or not. And then there's the separated stuff on top of it as well. There's so many layers to it. Like it's, you feel guilty because you've broken up the family unit by leaving. You feel like you've stuffed up your kids' lives, you know, you've irreparably damaged them in some way. Well, you know, you have by putting them through that. Although, you know, over time you sort of realize that, you know, it is ultimately the best thing, and that you've actually allowed them the opportunity to heal with your support, being in a safe environment, or an environment where, you know, the relationships are good and everyone's able to build sort of loving relationships that work, whereas they wouldn't have before. So, you know, that's sort of one way to work through that. So I think, yeah, short answer is really just to acknowledge it and be with it and go, oh, okay, it's guilt, you know, and just recognize, I guess, where that guilt is healthy and where it isn't. Because, you know, there's times when, you stuff up as a parent, and you know, and that's cool. I mean, no, it's not always, but you know, it happens and it's good. And so just acknowledging, oh, okay, could have done that better, and even acknowledging to your children can be incredibly healing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
To say, yeah, okay, I was, and you know, because you're going through a lot of emotions yourself, like as a parent, even if you're not separated. And you know, when you're separated, even more so, it's probably just intensified, the same thing but intensified, and a lot more, you know, roller coaster in there too. And you've got the grief and the, you know, the anger and the bitterness and the, you know, all of that as well. So I think just recognizing what's healthy and what's, you know, where you have actually done something wrong, like you screamed at your child, you know, and told them to go, you've screamed at your child. I mean, you know, that's
happens,
not ideal, but it happens, right? So, you know, I've screamed at my children a lot. I'll put my hand up for that one. And yes, it's not a good thing, but and when you do it a lot, like you're finding that you're going from 0 to 5,000 in 10 seconds, you know, you sort of, you know, you can more and more, I guess, start to think, okay, I need to take a look inside myself and what's happening. But as you do the work, you start to be able to do that, and not blame your children and everything else around you. But I guess just noticing that and going, okay, well, that wasn't so good. I'll do better next time. And just you know, talking to your children about the fact that it, you know, it really wasn't great what you did, and maybe we could do that better next time. And I'm really sorry I yelled. I was very angry, and here's what I was feeling. And actually talking through those feelings can be a really fantastic learning experience for children, because you know what, they're also going through a lot of the same feelings. They're actually quite angry as well and bitter, and they're going through some grief too. So you're modeling it for them to say, actually, I'm human, I'm feeling some stuff. And yes, I exploded when I shouldn't have. I'm really sorry.
And then learning to label emotions and things and how to talk about them in a safe way as well, which is fantastic.
Yes. And I would say it's helpful to teach them how to feel those emotions in their body too. I'm all about the sensations in the body and working with the body. I think that's, you know, particularly with the trauma side of the work that I do, it's really important, because this is where trauma happens, in the body, in those very primitive systems that we have, that our brains connect to.
Absolutely. And I want to add from the parent guilt thing as well. And as you said, you know, there's times when it's valid. Sometimes it's a message that for some of us, we do need to spend more time with our kids. But a lot of the time, I think the people who really feel guilt are being the most incredible and devoted parents, and still do. But just, I think we can get caught up as parents in that becoming one's identity, and just reminding ourselves that we are not just a parent, we are also still a human being with all of our own stuff and needs. And I think that's where we can, especially with that, you know, spending time on ourselves or with our partners or with our friends, I think that's where we can kind of relinquish some of that guilt to just remember that we have an identity beyond these little people. And it doesn't mean that we don't love them if we want to be more than their parent.
Yeah.
And there's someone that I know who I think she thinks she's pretty ordinary, but I think she's incredible. She runs 2 businesses and has 5 children, I think it is now. She's
Wow.
absolutely insane. Jess Nandina from Olive Social, and she talks
Wow.
about she loves running her businesses, and so she wants to be doing work as well as being a parent. And so she doesn't feel guilty about not being there in every moment of her children's lives, but she makes sure that very regularly she has moments where she is fully present with her children.
That's
and
beautiful.
I think that's a really nice change. They don't have to be all day moments, but when you are choosing your children as your focus, you be 100% with them.
Oh, yes. And they'll feel that too. That's beautiful.
And I think that's, that's an aspiration of mine to maybe
get me too.
But I think that's a beautiful way to flip stuff when we feel guilty about not having the time. Because I think that's a big thing for parents who work a lot, or, like us, we run businesses and things, we can feel very stretched.
Yes.
They don't need us 24/7, but they just need us in our entirety when we can be there. And I think that's a really beautiful one. Yeah.
I love that. That's great. And I've got a really simple little technique as well, like self-inquiry technique too, that's quite handy. Which is literally like it's usually when you're a parent, it's usually like, oh, I'm such a bad mother. Like that's the most common, but there's lots of them. So it's I am a bad mother. That's becoming part of your identity. But in those moments, just noticing that and noticing that feeling, noticing where you feel it in your body, slowing down and stopping and just going, okay, so am I a bad mother in every single moment? Because to be a bad mother, I'd really have to be a bad mother. Like I'd have to be bad in every single moment. Okay, so I'm not really. I'm not, because you're not bad in every single moment. So therefore you can't be a bad mother. Oh, okay, I just did something bad. Okay, so then it sort of moves it up towards being something that's guilt. And then you can start to just look at it, be very gentle with yourself and look at it and go, okay, so I did something that wasn't so good. Or it might be, was it really that bad?
That's what I was just thinking. Sometimes our expectations are just so ridiculously high that we, it's almost, do we need to be a perfect parent either? Because I think sometimes that's what we expect sometimes of ourselves. And we are never going to be. So it's not even bad sometimes, but it's just like, was that really such a terrible thing? Did it really harm anyone that much? And instead, just, okay, well, how might I do things differently next time then? And I think as well, when we move to that solution focus rather than dwelling on the problem, it really helps us get out of some of those lingering feelings of guilt and dread and so on. Yes,
I think that's a healthy thing to show your children too, that actually, I'm not perfect, but that's a beautiful thing. Like no human's perfect. Woohoo! And you're one too, and you're not perfect. That's cool. I think that's such a letting go moment for my daughter, actually, more than I realized. When I actually owned up to someone, not owned up, but just talk to her about some of the things that I don't do right. Geez, I shouldn't have yelled so much. Mostly it's yelling for me. That's my thing to tell. But not so much anymore, really. Like it's the more I sort of peel the layers off this thing and get to know myself, which is, a journey that will be going for the rest of my life, I'm sure, which is cool. But I'm very happy to say, hey, I'm not perfect. I don't always get things right. But and I'm actually really happy with that. And here's what I'm going to do next time. Here's what I'm going to try and do next time, because I'm not perfect. It's not always going to happen right. So, and I think saying that was incredibly freeing for her as a young teen. Took her, oh, okay.
Even
I don't have to be perfect either. Okay, that's cool.
And I can feel how it can take the pressure off as well. We talked about your burnout really started a lot with doing everything, being the everything for your kids and trying to do it all, which to an
Yes.
extent you have to do a fair bit of stuff.
Yes,
But
as a
then when
sole
we take
parent, you
that
do
pressure
anything.
off doing it all perfect and being, you know, the best at it all the time,
Yeah.
it starts to really unravel that and starts to avoid going back to that place of burnout already, doesn't it? Where it's just like,
Yes.
okay, I'm just doing my best. I'm going to screw it up sometimes.
Yeah.
I'll just do it again and see how it goes better. You know, like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
so freeing, isn't it?
Oh, it is. And it was also being free with the kids too. Not trying to control everything with them too. Like I think there was a point where I was working ridiculous hours and the children were at school ridiculous hours. And that was that was actually before one of the big meltdowns. And I went, okay, this is not sustainable. But I had to have the meltdown to realize that. But anyway, that's okay.
Happens.
That's what happens. Yes, and I just remember, like, we used to wake up Saturday mornings and just stay in our pajamas, so most of the day, sometimes all day, and I just made that okay for them too, because I'm like, they're tired, I'm tired.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes we'd get up and go do something, or you know, be going to a party, or friend's party, or kids party, whatever, or go do our food shopping or whatever. But sometimes, you know, I just ordered online shopping for a while. That was a big thing for me to do. I'm like, you know what, online shopping, online food shopping, brilliant. Fantastic. And we can stay in our pajamas all day and just doing that. The kids just loved it, having me more relaxed and more okay with doing that too. Yeah,
I think it's letting go of some of the rules that we make and those shoulds that we're supposed to get out of our pajamas, or we need to do this as a parent, and just doing what we and our kids need, you know. And that's if you all needed a rest, just have a rest and have some time together, and
I'm
that's
tired,
enough.
you're tired, let's watch a movie. Oh, okay, we'll eat our breakfast while we're watching the movie. Awesome. And then so and then the kids just can then relax and feel safe and happy, and it's all okay. Like, I think we just we put like you said, we put so many rules and expectations on ourselves needlessly.
Fantastic. I think we need to start wrapping up. I could talk all day about this with you, though. It's so exciting. Thank you. But there's been some brilliant tips in there for people all the way through. And if you're listening and you're not a parent, this stuff still applies to your life, you know, in general. Are we forming our whole identity through something else or someone else? Are we getting caught up in doing all the shoulds and playing by all the rules? And can we relax it? Can we take the pressure off ourselves and just be human and be okay with it all? It's not a parent only experience at all. We just happen to be talking through that lens today, because that is where your focus is, Gretel, and you are also an incredible parent as well as an incredible coach. And if anyone wants to connect with Gretel, she is at Greteljane Coaching. I'm going to share your Facebook and Instagram links for people on the show notes, and you offer a lovely free cuppa and chat or a taste of calm session are both some options that people, I'll put the link there to book in with you if you want to connect with Gretel and you think that you might really need some support from her at the moment with that. And of course, as well, I just want to touch on, because we've mentioned some of your journey with an abusive relationship, that of course, if anyone's experiencing anything like that and needs help, that we are both available here to reach out to if anyone wants to talk through anything and get some support for themselves with that as well.
Absolutely. I've done that a fair bit, actually. For sure.
So there's always some options and some ways to get support, and if we're not the ones, find some people in your local community as well. But otherwise, thank you so much, Gretel. It's been so fun to catch up with you.
My pleasure. That was fun. Always fun, Shireen. I love it. I love chatting with you.
Thank you. Me too. Thank you for being a guest. And everyone, please subscribe, like, follow, let us know what you thought of it, and we'll catch you next time as well. Thank you. Well, that brings to an end today's episode of Crash, Burn, Rise Again. It's been fantastic to have you with us today, and I hope you can join me next time. I also hope you've really enjoyed and maybe even learned something today. What I ask next is, if you're loving what you're hearing, please subscribe on whatever channel you normally listen to your podcasts, or on my YouTube channel, and you can also follow along and find all previous podcast episodes on my website, recastcoaching.com.au. If you're enjoying the podcast, the other thing I'd love is if you can share and recommend to any friends, family, and colleagues who you think would benefit from a little bit of crash, burn, rise again. Thanks so much, and until next time, bye for now.